Everyone, it's LS, and this is going to be the patch 8.4 notes rundown, and this is the patch that apparently a lot of people, myself included, have been waiting for, mostly because it's a giant patch, and it's one that probably is going to completely shake up the meta and change a lot that has been happening for the last abomination that, has been Season 8 so far. So, I haven't looked at anything yet. We're going to jump in completely blind and talk about whatever it is that we end up reading. So, with that being said, I mean, the PBE, it was known that there were item changes, but let's finally see what the final product is. So, Lost Chapter, total cost 900 to 1100. So now this requires mid laners to probably stay in lane anywhere from 1 to 2 waves longer if they're trying to get the Lost Chapter by. However, it has added 10% cooldown reduction, but it comes with the attachment of unique passive haste. So, okay, but let's see what Lost Chapter builds into now. Okay, right here. Lost Chapter builds into 3 items now. Luden's Echo, Hextech GLP, and Archangels Staff, okay? Luden's Echo, this one's for poking. So the total gold cost goes up by 100, ability power goes down by 10, movement speed is lost, mana goes up to 500, and then cooldown reduction is 10%. And then it has haste, so 20% CDR for 90 ability power and 500 mana. And I guess it's still retaining its Luden's Echo poke. It just doesn't come with the movement speed anymore. But without the mana restoration, this ends up becoming a pretty weird Morellonomicon. So I don't actually totally know how I'm going to feel about that. One of the things that obviously made Luden's Echo actually quite good was the 10% movement speed, in addition to the fact that it just had a pretty nice build path. Eventually, it had the Aether Wisp, had an easily large rod. And then other items throughout the years have actually been hit, whereas Luden's was basically just standing still. So ended up being a pretty worthwhile item in a lot of situations, and it could also be used as a early to mid game accelerant that could really aid some champions in taking over the game. So it basically was a pseudo Magi's. But anyways, Hextech GLP 800. This one's for catching. It says health no longer grants 300 HP, mana 400 to 500. And now cooldown reduction 10%. It also has haste, so 20% coming in here. Updated, less frosty. Frostbolt's now only damages and slows first unit hit per missile. Frostbolt slow decay is over 1 second now. Okay, Frostbolt cone narrowed by 10 degrees. Frostbolt slow percent 65 to 40%. Frostbolt missile speed 2000 to 1600. So Eternity is also removed. And taking away the health, you have to wonder exactly how is this going to affect Aurelion Soul. There's very few champions that were building this item in general. Sometimes you would see it on something like Ahri, very, very rare. Lissandra was another champion. Sometimes you would see it on Anivia instead of Rod of Ages. Mostly this was the Aurelion Soul item. Losing the 300 HP, it's not the end of the world. He is getting CDR. We'll have to see what happens to other items before I comment more. But basically, this is an item that you're only going to associate with Aurelion Soul, so you have to keep that in mind. Archangels Staff, no more mana, more spell cast. So goes up by 100 gold, and then ability power gets cut by 30, but then the maximum mana goes up by 400. And there's a lot of other items that seem to be granting more mana now. So obviously that's going to tie in with this thing's passive, and then you do the math, and you're going to end up getting an answer to how it affects the ability power loss. Cooldown reduction now grants 20% CDR. So this is really, really good for Cassiopeia. So Archangels Staff and the new Luden's Echo. I mean, yes, the movement speed loss kind of looks obnoxious, but that's the first thing that comes to mind when I'm seeing this. Again, there's very few champions in the game right now that are using Archangels. That could potentially change with the addition of CDR being added, because historically there have been some champions that have tried to incorporate adding a tier. Some of them are like Lux in the past sometimes, but it was a very long time ago, very rare. Sometimes you would see it on Veigar. Obviously, Ryze historically was a champion that obviously loves Seraph's Embrace. Cassiopeia. So you're looking at champions like that. Then obviously all of those champions that I just mentioned, they do scale with CDR to a degree, and they're definitely going to like that. So, okay, Leandri's Torment. So let's see. Unique passive no longer grants Eyes of Pain, 15 flat magic penetration. Madness. Damaging champions increases the damage you deal by 2% per second until exiting combat, up to 10%. Updated unique passive. 1% of the target's maximum health per second. So the first thing that obviously comes to mind is Mordekaiser, right? Because of his dot. Another champion that comes to mind here is Malzahar. So don't forget that Malzahar, you know, we're talking about a lot of these items. Now, yes, the movement speed being lost from it, that is kind of problematic, but Malzahar certainly going to like the CDR here, certainly going to like the mana. So this is another item for Malzahar. This is not an item for Malzahar. I'm very doubtful that this is going to be an item for Malzahar. Malzahar loves this, and Malzahar is a champion that he's been getting hit a lot lately. And this is going to help him out dramatically with his E and with his R. There's so many champions that are going to love this so much. Rumble, another champion that we haven't seen in a really, really long time. Brand, another champion we haven't seen in a really, really long time. Zyra, support, something we haven't seen in a really, really long time. There's so many champions that they've dropped off the face of the earth, and this is an item that they're going to absolutely love. And it doesn't matter that it lost its 15 flat magic penetration. This new change is just absolutely insane. And so I think that so far, after reading all of this, this item is going to completely just shake up things in mid lane, top lane, and in support. Is it enough to bring back Rumble? It might be, actually. This change alone might actually be good enough to bring back Rumble. Because it's just going to make his ultimate so scary. You know, other changes that have occurred throughout the last, like, 5 patches have just been so big. And I think that it ties into helping bring back Rumble. So, okay. Let's see this. Haunting Guise. Let's check here. Ability power 25 to 35, okay. No longer grants Eyes of Pain, that's pretty bad. Madness. Damaging champions increases the damage you do by 2% per second until exiting combat. This is great for Rumble. This is really, really good news for Rumble. It's good news for Taliyah, good news for Brand. It's really good news for Mordekaiser. They will gladly welcome all of these changes. I don't actually know how these changes entirely affect AP Teemo. You know, I gotta squeeze him in there for all of you. But obviously, Malzahar, another champion that really is going to like these changes. And I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. I really am. Morellonomicon. Total cost up by 100. Ability power 100 to 800. Don't know how I feel about that. Mana no longer grants 400 mana. Okay. Unique cooldown reduction removed. Touch of Death 15 flat magic pen. Curse strike. Magic damage dealt to champions inflicts them with grievous wounds for 3 seconds. Okay. So it doesn't grant mana anymore, but it gives you some magic penetration and it gives you grievous wounds, but it only hits for 80. I truly do worry about items like this. This isn't a lot of oomph for what it's giving. Yes, it gives you 15 flat magic penetration. Yes, a lot of champions are losing, you know, their resistances. And this is what I meant earlier when I said that, you know, over the last 5 patches, a big shakeup has come inside of League. It does give you the flat magic pen. So if you have Sork pen boots, obviously that's going to be fantastic. This now does help with Rumble. So we were talking about Rumble a little bit earlier. This definitely helps against Rumble. But I feel like this item will take on the role that Mortal Reminder takes on, in the sense that, yes, it's an item that exists. Yes, it pops up with some frequency. But I don't know. I don't know how great. Twitch chat is telling me that apparently it grants 300 HP and that it's just not on the patch notes. If that is indeed the case, then I do take back some of the stuff that I just said, because 300 HP is actually a lot. So 300 HP for an 80 ability. Well, it doesn't completely change everything. It does mean that it is going to be a staple on Rumble, most likely. That also probably does mean that it's a staple on Mordekaiser, It does also probably mean that it's a staple on tankier mid lane mages that would like the Grievous Wounds, they would like the flat magic penetration. You know, the mages that used to build Roa in mid lane, like Twisted Fate or something. Now, I'm not saying that Twisted Fate builds this as a staple item, but obviously 300 HP really does change up things for the AP bruisers and the sustained damage bruisers. So I think this is actually fantastic in that regard. I also do think that Cassiopeia could end up building this item because, again, she has more access to items given the fact that she doesn't have the boot slot. And picking this item up way later on could obviously be really beneficial. HP is fantastic. And this also makes me think that another champion that doesn't slow down, Malzahar, also going to really like this item. So, okay. Oblivion Orb, Ruby Crystal. Okay, so this is the new Haunting guys. That's fine. Spellbinder, the more fighting, the better. Aether Wisp, needlessly large rod, 700 gold. Total cost 2,800. AP is 100. Okay. Movement speed, 10%. Nearby allied and enemy spellcasts charge Spellbinder up to a cap, 100 maximum. Active, gain a maximum of 30% decaying movement speed and 100 ability power for 4 seconds based on charges. Spent, 60-second cooldown. Okay, so it gives you a steroid. So it's basically it's a steroid. It's like Surge, right? In a way, it's sort of like Surge. Wasn't that an old rune or mastery or something a long time ago? This seems really gimmicky. It really does. And I've talked about items like this in the past. 2,800 gold is a pretty high toll, especially when you consider that there's so many other items that you definitely want to prioritize first. And when champions have their core staples that need to be picked up, you end up finding it to be a little awkward to squeeze an item like this in. And I truly do wonder if this suffers the fate of the release Luden's Echo. I was very outspoken about release Luden's Echo a very long time ago when the large rod was 1,600 gold, and the effects I didn't feel were actually that impactful compared to the actives and, how much other items offered at different stages of the game and how you needed different items, passives and actives at different stages of the game to get you through and maintain advantages. And then close out stuff. So, this is pretty good. I really do think that it's kind of gimmicky. I do think that it's gimmicky. I am really hesitant to say that it's trash because there are some champions that obviously do come to mind that you just activate it and then you press R, and you kill them. Annie, this is, Annie, she gets the MS and she can engage without flash, I guess, and, she deals a lot more damage with Tibbers. I mean, obviously, nukers like Syndra, they can just press R and kill you. Azir could just press R and do a lot of damage. Veigar could just press R and do a lot of damage. But again, it's an item that I think it comes in later into the game. This isn't an item that you're building first. This is an item that could take on the role of Luden's, like I mentioned before, in the sense that it's a pseudo Magi's, where if you're ahead, you get more ahead because you end up having this ability power that can't be accounted for, and they can't do anything about it. They can't slow it down, and it occurs in burst phases. And obviously, what else occurs in burst phases, which is going to be going for lethal, playing around your cooldowns, playing around your ultimate's cooldown, or playing around, someone's flash or someone's heal, someone's barrier, or something like that. That's what this item initially says to me. Twin Shadows. When you're feeling clingy, ability power is 60, movement speed 7%, cooldown reduction 10%, spectral pursuit. So this still feels like it's a support item, but champions that value the ability to stick to you, like Echo, might still definitely like this. We also saw changes where, there was a period where Zeroth, for a certain period of time, he was taking the old Frost Queens thing just to slow you down and kill you. There's also a period on Korea a long time ago where Cho'Gaths used to be doing that just so that they could guarantee that they could hit the Rupture and then kill you. 60 ability power, 7 movement speed. it's not offering, I think, enough for 2,400 gold. This could probably be a third or a fourth item, given, whatever the state of the game is, if it allows for it. Realistically, it looks like it's going to be a very, very specific item on very unique champions, and then often maybe just appear as a support item. But I think that's pretty much it. 90-second cooldown is pretty big as well. So, okay. These last few changes are efficiency adjustments to the items that were a bit too strong or weak for their cost. Void Staff, ability power 80 to 70. I don't like that. Rabadon's Death Cat, 3,800 to 3,600 gold. Needlessly Large Rod, 1,100 gold. Okay, well, we got Kim Kardashian. She's hit Summoner's Rift. Unique passive, increase ability power by 35% to increases by 40%. So now, obviously that's a nice little welcome change. The gold cost goes down, and then the ramp goes up from the passive. The thing that I'm thinking though is that, again, is this going to end up being an item that you can go second, and that's going to be very, very specific to team compositions and the game state. Otherwise, Rabadon's Death Cap still might just end up being sent to being a third or a fourth item staple. I do think that this does push forth, the desire to have it as a third item. It is a lot more affordable. It comes online sooner. I think that the build path is... I truly prefer this build path, because if you have two items, it feels a lot better to go Needlessly Large Rod, than it felt to go Needlessly Large Rod, Amp Tome, or Needlessly Large Rod, Blasting One, and then sit on it for a long time. So I do think that this supports the notion of almost always going Rabadon's Death Cap, maybe third item, and then at the very least fourth item on some champions. This does further incentivize you to go at second item though, if you have a very large advantage, and if your team needs wave clear, and or if you have like Lichbane or something for some reason. Well, I guess there's not going to be a lot of cases where you go Lichbane Rabadons, but if you have other things that are making use out of the raw AP that you don't benefit from the passive or the actives of other items that you could get at that point in time, Rabadon's is going to be your item to go to. Rylai's Crystal Scepter, 75 to 85. Okay, so the big question on everyone's mind, or at least my mind coming into this, is some really key mid lane champions that got completely gutted over the last few patches, or basically like the last year. Victor. I do think that a lot of the changes, they help Victor in a lot of ways. And, this is like sort of the stuff that I talk about with Kog'Maw and Varus in recent patches, where sometimes champions can be, propelled back into the meta, not because of changes that occur to them, but because of changes that occur to items that affect them, but also their opponents and the matchups and how games are likely to unfold. So Malzahar gets enormous help from this patch so far, at least from what I've been reading. And I think that Victor actually gets a lot of help inside of this patch. This is enormous for Victor, the Rabadon's Death Cap change, because this gives him back a little bit of his oomph. The Void Staff loss, not the end of the world, because obviously he gets it back inside of Rylai's Crystal Scepter, especially because Victor generally tends to favor the utility of items rather than get the raw penetration. And what I mean by that is normally he completes his entire Hex core, then he gets his first core item, which, a lot of points in the past was either Lichbane or Rylai's, and then he goes into getting his penetration for the later stages of the game. So this is going to help his mid-game. It's going to bolster his stats a little bit. The changes here are all fantastic for him. And then some of the other changes that we've seen inside of items are good. I'm mostly excited that Malzahar gets a lot of help, because I feel like Riot was being really unfair to him in recent patches, and I think that all of this is really great. Another champion I mentioned earlier on, does this instantly mean that Mordekaiser becomes good simply because of the change of Liandry's Torment? I think Mord is still going to have tremendously awful matchups in a lot of cases, and I do think that if he's, overtuned or something, then it's going to be problematic. Cassiopeia is a champion that I think gets a lot of benefit from some of these changes. When I'm looking at the Aurelian Soul thing, obviously the Morellonomicon and the change with Hex Check GLP, I guess that's kind of okay, but I don't know exactly how all of this is going to impact Aurelion Sol. But there's a lot of champions like Zyra and Brand that I mentioned. Rumble, I almost 100% think Rumble is coming back because of this. So we got that going on. And then obviously Spellbinder, Annie loves that. So I know that most people watching this should love that, you know, if you value your own MMR. So that's pretty much it. And then a lot of these changes, they aren't that great for just the generic hard-hitting champs. A lot of these changes really favor the utility mages more so than just the champions that go, okay, I'm just gonna, you know, pounce on you. And what I mean by that is, like, someone like Syndra actually gets hit, I feel like, by a lot of these changes. So, you know, that's actually a nice sign, because, you know, who cares about Syndra, you know what I'm saying? Anyways, let's take a look at the balance changes now. Top lane, everyone's favorite lane. Darius. W cooldown decreased at early ranks, W damage increased at later ranks, E armor penetration increased. Darius has a Juggernaut, has damage as his main output. Currently, he could use some Crippling Strike, 9 to 5 seconds scaling to 7 to 5 seconds. Okay. 140% total attack damage to 160. Okay. Apprehend. Wow. Oh, he's get. Be still my heart. Is Riot buffing champions? Wait a minute. Are we getting a lot of buffed things going on? Because I'm a huge fan of imbalance versus imbalance. So I really like the direction that they're taking them here. There's a lot of champions up in top lane. I remember last year, I was pretty outspoken that Darius, you know, almost had an opportunity to come back. I remember Freak even talked about how Darius could probably end up coming back. I think that Darius is in a pretty unique spot right now because, again, he's one of the few champions that doesn't run teleport top lane, but there's so many matchups that he can be really good into. Do I think that these changes entirely aid him that much? Because look, it's 160% total attack damage. Darius doesn't build raw AD. It's not like he's getting any changes to his CDR at rank 5. So the thing that he's really getting is 5% armor penetration and then an extra 20% total attack damage on his W Crippling Strike. I don't think it's going to be enough to magically make him come back into the meta. So don't get overhyped if you're a Darius fan. But do get extremely hyped if you're a Darius fan in your silver, because this is the change for you. Alright, so Gangplank. Q mana cost increased to early ranks. E barrel duration decreased. Barrels no longer reveal nearby units. Well, that sucks. Q parlay. Oh, what? Okay, so early on, this basically takes away from Gangplank's ability to assert dominance early on, but he'll still be Gangplank. You're not picking Gangplank because Gangplank shouldn't be a champion that you're like, you know what, I'm going to pick him into anything that I want. I'm going to harass anything that I want, and you're not going to have a say about it. He should be kept a little bit in line. I've been really vocal about Gangplank for, I want to say, the last 2 months. He's one of the most broken champions in the game. He is so strong with how much the game and team play has evolved over the years that he does need to be kept in check. I'm sure that there's actually some, you know, Twitch TV clip highlights of me talking about Gangplank and saying how just absolutely disgustingly insane this champion is. And people that complain about him being bad, A, they can't pilot him, and then B, their teammates, I mean, you wonder why Gangplank died in the lore, okay? Because if you had those teammates, you'd probably die too. But this champion is fantastic. I think that these balance changes are actually completely fine. So I'm all for that. Gnar, Q cooldown refund decreased. More at higher ranks, E base damage increased. Q boomerang throw, 45% to 60% based on rank to 40% at all levels. Okay, well, that's nice. E hop, base damage 20 to 180 to 50 to 190. I think these changes are completely fine. I do like this because Gnar's not honestly a champion that I like seeing in games. It's not anything like against him aesthetically or something. It's just, I feel like his playstyle is honestly pretty boring. It's really pretty boring, especially because of the matchups that you see him get picked into. Very, very rarely will I actually talk about my distaste for a champion because of how boring the champion is. Gnar on paper, he's pretty good. These balance changes are also really fair. I just hate the champion. for a lot of reasons. I get really sick and tired of when I see him in the meta for long, extended periods of time. I just hate his kit, you know? I don't like champions with his kits. Hop away, dude. Alright, let's go on to Ornn. Annie is not boring. And listen, I've never banned a 1-year sub before, but we're making exceptions today. Coming at you live from YouTube. Anyways, Ornn, W shield duration increased. Alright, so let's take a look at the Ornn balance changes. W shield duration increased, cooldown decreased at early ranks, damage increased early and decreased late, brittle duration decreased, E now deals more damage on average, but cannot double hit. Okay. W bellows breath, 13 to 9 second scaling to... Ooh. Damage, 10% to 18%. Okay, so he gets a little bit more damage early on, but that's not why you're spamming it early on. You're not spamming it for damage. The good thing is that you end up maxing W first, so realistically, these are the numbers that we have to look at. You are going to feel this on Ornn. You definitely will feel these changes on Ornn in the laning phase. Once you get to level 6 and stuff, it'll start to feel less impactful of a change, primarily because you're not spamming Bellows Breath off cooldown 100% of the time. It is going to give opponents more of a window to trade against him, and I think that that's actually completely fine. But you're definitely going to feel this as an Ornn player in lane, and definitely champions like Jace, like Fiora, like Gangplank, they're going to be able to have even more of their time with Ornn, because apparently he's been blowing his breath for quite a while, you know. So shield duration 2.5 to 3.5 seconds. That doesn't really matter all that much, because oftentimes your shield is getting depleted because they're usually auto-attacking you during it. Even if it is up a little bit longer, that's still not affecting why and how you're using Bellows Breath during laning phase. So, brittle duration. 6 seconds to 3 seconds. That's really ugly. Now, listen, coming from a Tahm Kench enthusiast, all right, I know how much passive durations fading or just going away can really affect you, and this is really, really, really big. Because obviously this makes his combo windows that much harder to hit. And I think this is a little bit too severe. I think 6 to 4 seconds would have been okay, or like 6 to 4.5 or something, or maybe even have it like scaling, like have it go 4.5 and then get back up to 6 or something late game. Maybe that would have been okay. That seems a little bit severe with me. So throughout this entire patch, so far, the brittle duration on Ornn's thing is my only complaint. Other than that, this is one of the best, if not the best patch so far that I think I've ever done a rundown on that has, you know, come from Riot. So hats off to that. Hicieron Charge, base damage 30 to 110, scaling to 80 to 260, damage ratio 30%, 30%, 40%, 40% shockwave damage, no longer deals an additional damage when colliding with terrain. Overall damage 80 to 320, scaling to 80 to 260, overall damage ratio. Alright, so these numbers and stuff are not impactful enough. And the reason that I say that it's not impactful enough is because you're not winning trades or going for things, you know, with the intent that your E is going to deal damage. It's either you stun lock them or you CC lock them or whatever, and they die or they don't die, okay? Just ask TSM. So, so far, the only real thing is that the trade windows against Ornn pre-level 6, obviously now going to be more favorable for his counter matchups. But he's still going to be the same champion after that, and he's still going to be picked for the same exact purposes that he was picked previously. So that's pretty much it. Okay, Papi. This is a champion that I know everyone hates her, and I probably would too if she was meta again, but I miss her. I miss hating her. Does anyone know? Anyways, passive damage increased to early levels, E damage increased 10 to 180 to 20 to 180. That's actually quite big. E heroic charge 55 to 135 to 60 to 140. These changes are nice. I don't think that it's enough to propel her back into the meta unless we have some other, you know, nutsoid changes that are magically going to come out. However, this does strike me as a placebo buff. I do not think that Papi is as bad as people think right now. So this might be a placebo buff in the sense that it drives up a little bit of play rate, maybe, you know, puts her on some pro players' radars again, and they play her in scrims, and they have some, you know, completely uncorrelated wins that has nothing to do with Papi herself, but they're like, you know what, Papi felt good, I'm going to play her again. And we might see her pop back up that way. These are obviously welcome buffs, welcome changes. I am so excited to potentially hate Papi again. Looking forward to it. Renekton, Q, damage increased at later ranks, empowered Q, damage increased. Called a Meek, 65 to 185 to 65 to 205. Renekton's certainly going to like that. Empowered damage 95 to 275 scaling to 100 to 300 scaling. So nice little changes. Do I think that it's going to magically make Renekton come back into the meta? Absolutely not. So now let's talk about everyone's favorite top laner champion, who, if someone could have them balanced the exact way that they want them to be balanced, then they would win every single matchup. They would start the lane with the Trinity Force, because that's just the way that this champion should be allowed to play the game, because, you know, screw scaling and basically being an unstoppable monster in 1v1s later on. But Counter-Strike fixed a bug where Counter-Strike's buff could take up to 0.25 seconds to take a foot right in a Counter-Strike. That's actually pretty good. That's pretty good. That's a fresh meme. I'm really proud. I don't know who wrote this in from the Riot team here, but one of you guys, hats off to you. Okay, hope that was Gentleman Gustav. All right. Now let's go on to Frozen Mallet. Ranged basic attack, slow for less. Who was even building this ranged? I guess Gnar. That's the only champion, right? It was just Gnar. Okay. Well, like, I don't... Okay, whatever. Champions. Evelynn. E damage increased. Whiplash. 40 to 100 scaling to 55 to 100. Evelynn is a champion that I don't understand what is going on. She's basically like the tides where she comes and she goes, alright? And either she's, you know, she's the hottest piece, you know, the hottest news in the world, okay, or she's just completely gone. There was a period where it was almost like every game you had to ban her, or you were seeing her in every game, at least in solo queue on Korea, and then nothing, just crickets. And I don't know exactly what was going on with that, but it seems like she's in a really finicky place. And these changes, obviously Evelynn mains are going to like it. I think that Eve still suffers from the problem of being Eve. And, you know, I've talked about that in previous patch notes. So while these changes are likely to be welcome, I just don't think that it's actually enough. Fiddlesticks. Okay, who cares, really? E cooldown decreased to early ranks. E bonus damage to monsters increased. Bonus damage to minions removed. R cooldown decreased. Cooldown 12 to 10 seconds to 10 seconds to... Okay, that's actually pretty big for support Fiddlesticks. Because it should be noted that support Fiddlesticks actually maxes Fear. So he doesn't max Dark Wind, or at least if... Or I believe that to be the case, unless there was some sort of a meta shift with support Fiddlesticks. But anyways, bonus damage to monsters, 50% to 100%. That's really, really big. Darkwing no longer deals bonus damage to minions. That's fine. That's actually even better for support Fiddlesticks. Our Crowstorm, really? This is actually big, because a 50-second window is really big late game for a support Fiddlesticks or a jungle Fiddlesticks. So I really, really like this change. I love this change for support Fiddle. And I even like it for jungle Fiddle. Maybe this trash can is actually, you know, going to be picked up a little bit in solo queue now because of this change. I hope to see him be played at least in support. And then obviously the most important game mode, all random, all mid, or as some people like to call it, NALCS. You know, big buffs there. Kalista, base attack damage and range decreased. Base attack speed and attack speed per level increased. W now grants attack damage instead of attack speed when Kalista is near her Oathsworn. Okay. Wait. W now grants attack damage instead of attack speed when Kalista is near her. Okay. So, attack range 550 to 525. Base attack damage 71 to 66. Base attack speed 0.644. Okay. Attack speed goes up. Attack speed growth goes up. E-Rend, Mono Refund, 30 at all ranks. Okay, that's actually kind of big. Kalista gains 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 bonus attack damage when near her Oathsworn. 25 attack range. you're going to feel it versus Kate. And I think that's really it. In a lot of trades, let's be completely honest, Kalista is on top of you. She is never often at max attack range. There's going to be some instances where this change will be felt. This is not the 500 range. If it was 500 range, she's dead. 525, you'll feel it in some cases. But realistically, I think it's going to be manageable. I think Kalista will still be Kalista. I think Kalista will still be Kalista. So I think that's completely fine. W increase, maximum health damage increased at later ranks, okay? We went too hard on W last patch, so we're giving some of its strength back. 3 to 5%, no, listen. No. Guinsu's Wits End Kog'Maw is insane. He is absolutely insane, and you don't even have to actually use a mouse. You just, well, you need a mouse to, I guess, to initiate the A move, and then you just watch as everyone dies. Kog'Maw's itemization path and the meta around across the map is one of the problems that he's as strong as he is. I don't think that the nerf was as severe. I really don't care what happened inside of solo queue. I always approach it from a competitive perspective, or how something is likely to be at a high MMR. So Kog'Maw, I still think he's really underloved, and I think that people don't realize that he's actually a cookie cutter ADC right now, in the sense that he's going to be able to basically fit anywhere. He can go with anything, which traditionally and historically was not how Kog'Maw tended to fit inside of the game in the meta. But anyways, Rengar, Q reverted to rework, base attack damage scaling increased, R detection range decreased. Base attack damage 68 to 65, okay, attack damage growth, okay. Base attack stayed, that's nice. Attack speed growth stat, it's not the end of the world. Passive unseen threader, flat attack damage, 1 to 20 scaling. Removed, extra twisted. Once Rengar gained bone tooth necklace stacks from all 3 enemies on wait, what? Huh? Twisted tree line. What? What? That was definitely the unseen predator right there. Anyways, Rengar has a voice response to gaining a bone tooth necklace stacking, and okay, updated Q savagery. This is pretty much a revert to Rengar's old Q functionality. Q is now an attack reset plus an attack speed buff for next 2 attacks, okay. Battle roar, cooldown, oh. Thrill the Hunt, enemy vision rate, ooh. Okay, Rengar vision range 2000, okay. So they're given a little, okay. Movement speed 4, ooh. Rengar, meow. Rengar leaps out of his ultimate, now deals 30% total attack damage, as bonus damage and shred, what? What? Plus, enemy Rengar alerts all allies within 1200 range. Enemy revealed by Thrill of the Hunt stay revealed for the spell's duration. Okay. So these are really big changes for Rengar. Obviously, like the Red Smite, Duskblade, Rengar really likes this because now he'll just jump on you, and that'll be fun. Obviously, Lethality Rengar likes this a lot. The only thing that doesn't like this is probably Tank Rengar, rather than just not having the critical strike, but I'm not entirely sure about that. I really like the changes with Rengar. This is not going to return him to his absolutely insanely busted state, which was Spring Season 7. And the reason that I say that is primarily because what did that was actually his W Battle Roar. If anyone remembers the old Battle Roar basically being a perma-cleanse in a way. That's what made him insane. So I really like the changes. So I am so excited with this patch, by the way. So my last patch notes title was something like 8.3 swing and a miss. This is a fucking grand slam. Demonetized, by the way. Remonetized. Anyways, let's get to Shyvana. Attack damage per level decreased. Q base damage decreased. Base stats 3.4 to 2.8. Okay. And then she gets nerfed on. She disappeared. I just want to point out that she's still gross, but she disappeared a little bit. Shyvana is one of the strongest users of press the attack. With the power increase, press the attack is getting C below, and the half dragon needs to lose some base power. No, she doesn't. She fell off, and with a lot of the changes that are coming for other champions and the way that shakes up the meta, that will ultimately impact Shyvana. I think that this change came way too soon, and I think that it's basically, it's too much of a precaution with the change for, well, unless when we get to this is just disgusting, but I think it's probably an overreaction. All right, Swain. Now, a lot of people asked me why I didn't end up making the video on Swain, and let me tell you what. I think that it's better to not talk about this champion so that people will forget about him, so that maybe he gets another rework. But anyways, let's take a look. W, Vision of the Empire. 90 to 130 mana scaling to 70 to 130. That's great. That's not the problem with the spell. The problem with the spell is that it's extremely slow, never going to actually hit an opponent that has eyes. And you would be actually hard-pressed to, you know, maybe even hit Helen Keller with this. So not really too much of a Vision of the Empire, you know? Our Demonic Ascension, 15 to 45, 20 to 50, base heal per target. I mean, that doesn't do that much. Cooldown and soul fragments are fully refunded if Swain dies during the channel time of Demonic Ascension. Ultimate hat now properly. This doesn't do anything. This champion is terrible. He's clunky, he's slow, his build path sucks. Well, actually, hold on. Let me think about it. Let me pause for a second. Let me think about the new items. How does this impact Swain? Yeah, he still sucks. All right, great. Talon, base armor decreased, base magic resistance increased. Okay. So he's gonna get worse versus select champions, and then obviously ADs can, you know, AD that 2 armor. They're gonna be able to do a lot more to him now. Magic resistance, that's a lot of MR. That might be enough to actually make him come back. At least to a certain extent in mid lane. But the problem is that with the game having evolved and people being able to play around assassins much better, it's very, very difficult to make Talon truly work. Also, let's not forget that the lethality changes, they hit Talon. They were intended to hit Pantheon. Talon hasn't gotten any love since those changes. So, yes, he's getting a little bit more resistance, and he's able to be more durable in the mid lane or in top lane if you pick him there because you're weird. But it doesn't change the fact that he's lost a lot of damage, and he was already hard to play before that. Tristana, our cooldown increased, Buster Shot, 100 to 120, not going to do anything. This is not an ultimate that you are playing around, and you're like, oh man, I have it. We gotta go, you know? It's not the type of spell that this is, so it doesn't really matter. E, base damage decreased on Twitch. Base damage 20 to 80 to 20 to 40. Bonus damage per stack 15. Okay, that's one of the most random things in the world. All right, so this change, now this is the worst change so far this patch. This is just like, I don't know what to say. All right, let's get into this. Volibear. Holy. All right, so if we are, you know, I'm gonna go on a limb here and say that the Rioter that nerfed Volibear was probably left Riot Games. You know, that's... Anyways, Q movement speed increased. W now halves its cooldown when used on minions. E now knocks back enemies stuck and deals extra damage to dashing or airborne targets. Okay, cool. Rolling Thunder, 15% to 15 to 25% scaling. Bonus movement speed towards champions, 30 to 50 scaling to 30 to 60% scaling, okay? Master Drifter, when Volibear changes direction from towards champions to any other directions, bonus movement speed now decays over 1 second rather than falling off immediately. Okay, that's nice. W Frenzy. Frenzy's cooldown is halved if it's used on a minion in addition to monsters as previously. Okay, that's good. Majestic Aurora slightly knocks back enemies. Enemies who are dashing or airborne before Aurora is cast are dealt 40 to 180 plus 0.3 ability power additional magic damage. Okay. Does it change the fact that Volibear is still terrible? No. Why would you pick this champion over something like Skarner? Good question. He's basically Pantheon and Skarner fused together, and I don't know how you end up getting a bear off of that, but I mean, that's probably how he's going to end up being played inside of the jungle. Still going to be trash up in top lane, but obviously, hopefully this helps him out a little bit. And obviously, yeah, that 0.3 ability power, that's what's really important here. So, and no, I do not think that Volibear support is actually going to be a thing. So let's get that out of the way. Xin Zhao, another champion that fell off the face of the earth. So Passive damage decrease, W base cast time decrease. Passive determination 20 to 80%. Total to 50. What? Okay. W wind becomes lightning. Base cast time 0.6 to 0.5. Audacious. Okay. Z, R cooldown decreased at later ranks. This is another ability that when you're using it, you're not trying to just use it off cooldown. 10 seconds at rank 2, level 11 in game is laughable. It has no impact on the game. It's not doing anything whatsoever. No changes to Zed. Another user that suffered by the changes to the lethality items and the other changes that have occurred to mid lane throughout the, the last few patches. And basically, Zed has been absent for a really long time now from mid lane. Zed, Talon, champions like him, they really need help to get back into the meta if we're ever realistically going to see them again. We'll still see them like a flash in the pan, but I don't think any more than that. So this is a placebo buff. It actually does absolutely nothing for him, so it's whatever. Oh. Okay. Walking Dead comes back in 3 days, and yet I think that we get to find out what's going to happen to Negan right about now. So let's take a look at the Zoe changes. Most notably, Q damage down, minions no longer drop teleport, E no longer refunds cooldowns if it sleeps on a champion, cleansing drowsy now prevents sleep. All right, let's take a peek. Base health. All right, she gets a little bit more base health. She gets a little bit more attack damage. Passive, more sparkles. Base damage 12 to 135 scaling to 12 to 135 scaling. And she gets ability power on her passive. Q Paddle Star, base damage 45 to 165. Oh, wow. But the thing is that if she has... What? Ratio... Okay. Paddle Star no longer applies more sparkles damage to enemies past the first hit. Oh, okay. W Spell Thief. Minions can no longer drop teleport. That's really, really big. Movement speed bonus 10 to 70% scaling to 30 to 70% scaling. Ratio 0.4 to 0. A Sleepy Trouble Bubble. Sleepy Trouble Bubble's cooldown is no longer reduced by 10 to 30% when an enemy champion falls asleep. Moving drowsy now prevents the affected target from falling asleep. She just won't die. She just won't die. This fucking bitch. No, this isn't enough to completely kill her. She's no longer the complete like queen of mid lane, but she'll still be relevant. These changes are not enough to take away Zoe from being Zoe. Zoe is, number one, she's under-researched. Let that just be known, okay? How many times in all regions have we seen her be left open and she's not picked? How many times have we seen her in all regions be picked and then see the way that she was piloted was extremely poor? How many times do you think that pro teams are actually picking her and practicing against her inside of scrims? This is a champion that still hasn't been utilized despite how long she's been out. People haven't even begun to scratch the surface on Zoe. And if you think that these changes are going to magically just delete, how insane and nutzoid her kit is, then that's just silly. It might not happen immediately, but I think that Zoe's strength pops up later on. Now, it should be noted, though, that the itemization changes, if we scroll all the way up, okay, if we scroll all the way up, the itemization changes aren't exactly the best for Zoe. They're not the worst, but they're certainly not going to be the best. But some changes, obviously, she's really going to like. She's going to absolutely love Rabadon's death cap change. I think that people are going to rejoice at her nerf. Oh, wow, we still got a lot more to go. They're going to rejoice at these nerfs. I like the nerfs. I just think, and I'm excited, when she does get to be played more, when people get more comfortable with her, I think that we finally get to see her, and it's going to be more fun to see her. It's not going to be as oppressive. I still, again, I am really adamant about the fact that she's under-researched. And so I'm really excited for that. I think this is probably the best answer Riot could have given while not deleting the possibility that she does rise to power again. I think this was honestly one of the most fair, balanced changes I've seen to a champion that definitely needed it. So credit there. So okay. Some people are in chat are commenting 20% nerf and overall damage on average. That doesn't matter when she's overkilling you. She's not being picked because of her ability to one-shot you. She's being picked because of her kit and her oppressiveness and how she forces you to bend around her and the way that she forces you to coordinate against her because of her threat and how scary she is. Why does the extra damage matter when you're going to die anyway? It doesn't. You know, if you have 300 HP and she used to hit you for 400 and now she hits you for 350 or, you know, 300, you're dying. It doesn't matter. Anyways, let's move on. Extra damage to minions. We were worried that the removal of old runes and masteries would make last hitting too hard, so we gave all champions attacks a bonus 5 again. Okay. That's okay. Obviously, this can affect some champions last hitting, but it's not going to be the end of the world by any means. Items, Ancient Coin Line. Actually, wait. I wonder if that affects Kassadin off the top of my head. But anyways, random thing. Ancient Coin Line, movement speed 0 to 5. Movement speed 0 to 10. Run of the Ascended. Okay. Relic Shield. 25 health missing here. 50. Okay, that's kind of big. That's really big. This is irrelevant. This is really big. Oh, okay, that's not irrelevant. Wow. Those are really big hits to Relic Shield. Remove Tracker's Knife. What? Hold on, let me scroll. What? There's no Sightstone change. Wait. Huh? I just tried to control F Sightstone. What? Okay, so all of this means is that junglers are going to be getting Sightstone now. And junglers that like Red Smite, like Elise, this helps them. Elise, any jungler that liked Red Smite loves this. As long as they're still able to buy Sightstone. I really like this. I genuinely actually... I hope that they bring, when they do bring back Tracker's Knife, it's something very interesting. I don't mind this change. I feel like there's a lot of people that... Yeah, Sightstone was removed. Oh, yeah, Sightstone's transformed into the items now, but you get what I'm saying. Oh, yeah. No, but I was expecting that something was going to be given to jungle inside of, not just have it completely taken away. Junglers aren't going to be getting these items. They're not going to be getting the quest items. So don't overreact to Tracker's Knife. I don't think that that's as drastic as people are going to be making it out to be. In the past, junglers... Oh no, they can't buy... Now it's going to mean that they have to use Yellow Trinket, and mid laners are probably going to be the ones... Mids will probably be forced to stay on yellow longer, and then junglers have to use Yellow Trinket. Obviously, Lee Sin... Oh, man. That's really sad. That's honestly really sad. Hopefully they figure out an answer to this in 8.5 or 8.6. Wit's End. Ooh. Okay, cost decrease, on-hit damage increase. Max magic resist drain increased. With magic resist per stack halved on ranged champions. Kog'Maw. Ooh. Wit's End is okay. Gold cost 25 to 24. Damage on hit up by 2. Magic resist stolen per attack 6. That's great for Kog'Maw too. Excellent. Excellent. Cog and Varus. More Cog buffs. Excellent. Kale. Kale. Another champion that I think is really unsung lately is Kale. So this is another change that is really good in that department. So Varus gets better, Kog'Maw gets better. Kale, really big change, or really big buff here too. And then occasionally the Tahm Kench obviously really likes that. So anyways, let's move on to runes. Precision. Stat bonuses are now split between attack speed and stat provided by a secondary damage-oriented rune path, sorcery domination. Ooh. I don't like that. Precision sorcery, 9% attack speed, 10 ability power, or 6... This is going to hurt some champions, and then obviously it's going to be like, you know, a godsend blessing to others. I didn't mind this when they did it to the resolve tree. I do kind of mind it when they do it to precision. I think this helps out ADCs more than some of like the bruisers or like the junglers that they enjoyed just actually having the initial stat bonus from the main tree. But yeah. Keystone, damage increased, damage amp decreased at early levels. Okay, damage 30 to 120, and 40... yeah, okay, so now, everything I said about Twitch and Shyvana, that's a joke now. That's even more of a joke. This change doesn't warrant what they did to Twitch and Shyvana. Okay, Resolve. The new rune Bone Plating has been added to Resolve. Several runes move to different rows, okay? Bone Plating. After taking damage from an enemy champion, their next 3 spells or attacks against you deal 20 to 50 less ooh. Duration 5 seconds, cooldown 45 seconds. Wait, this isn't... That... Wait, this is in the second row? What? This is really good. I really like this. I like tank buffs like this. I love this. This is really, really good for top laners. And this is also potentially good for some supports. This is really, really nice. Kled likes this. Papi loves this. This is fantastic for Papi. I love this so much. I absolutely love this change. Resistance. There are now 4 runes in this row for now. Iron Skin, Mirror Shell, Conditioning, Second Wind has been moved here from the Vitality row, okay? Vitality, Overgrowth, Revitalize, Unflinching. Unflinching is moved here from the Strength row. Removed Second Wind, okay. Inspiration. Commencing Stopwatch transformed into Stopwatch later in the game. Please tell me it's 10 minutes. Hallelujah. This is good. This is really good. I think this is really healthy. This is very healthy. Time Warp Tonic. Your potion elixirs. Okay, I love this. Celestial Body, I thought was atrocious. I love the fact that they finally gave something on this road that is actually really valuable. I was actually just really worried for Twisted Fate, who I think is in a really, really good spot right now, because he definitely benefits from this. So this is really, really good. Jungle. Out of 4 Blast Cones spawn later in the game. This obviously affects early game pathing inside of solo queue. I don't think that it's going to have the most dramatic change or impact on competitive, especially because, you know, if you were ever had priority inside of the lane or you were able to get wards early on, you could always just play around these type of things. But I think that this is mostly going to impact solo queue the most, because it also makes surviving ganks a lot easier inside of solo queue. It does make invading a little bit harder now, but, you know, that's all fine. This is a legacy from ancient poaching effects of the past. Was this the Graves thing? Ancient Krugs? I don't even... I think. Hand of Baron. Initial stats, 25 attack damage and ability power to 24 attack damage and... what? Final stats, 40... What? Wow. Wow, that's gross. That is so gross. That makes it so much harder to actually survive. Don't miss smite. Holy. Wow. Oh, that is insane. That is absolutely insane. I like it, but it's insane. Okay. Elder Dragon buff. Let's see if they can one-up Baron. Respawn 10 minutes to 8 minutes. Wait, it's 10 minutes? I thought it was 8 already. Coach, by the way. A coach. Elder Dragon buffs beyond the first grant even stronger effects. The first buff is unchanged. We're listing the values below for comparison. Buff duration 140 seconds for the first buff, 300 seconds for you just win the game. Burn damage 45 plus 45 per Drake on Dragon killed for the first buff, 135 plus 90. This is Exodia. So it wasn't Exodia before, it is Exodia now. If you get the second Elder, if it even gets to that point, this is so ridiculous. The second Elder Dragon is Exodia. Don't miss smite. Just don't miss smite. Honor. Okay, scoreboard, bug fixes. Wow. Okay. So the only question mark here is where's Varus? That's the only thing I just can't figure out is where's Varus, you know? Love it. Cog, Varus, huge buffs. Papi, placebo buff, in addition to the changes to the runes. I think that's fantastic. Victor probably is back. Zoe, I think she's finally going to get the attention and the research that she probably deserves. Or maybe she doesn't, because people now just think that she's bad. And so they don't even try to research her or utilize her. Gangplank, I think he was brought in line. Absolutely fucking loved this patch. This is one of the best patch notes I've ever seen out of Riot since I've been since I started playing League of Legends. This is the best patch. The best patch. What? Magic resist per stack halved? No, they don't. The drain is all that matters. How much magic resist? Wait. Am I not understanding this right? Yeah, they steal half the MR. Wait. Yeah, wait. The only change that I think is really, really stupid is the press the attack. Everything else is fantastic. This is the best patch Riot has released in recent years. I'm really excited for 8.4 to go live because I don't think that it's gone live yet on Korea. I am really, really, really looking forward to it. I don't know how much effort went into this patch or how long they've been planning this patch. This is amazing. This was a great patch. And that is going to conclude the video.